Welcome to another lecture on fish. We are discussing a series on fish spoilage. Already we had three lectures. First one was basic handling and storage. Second one about the spoilage, particularly on enzymatic spoilage and chemical spoilage. And in the third lecture, I have discussed in details about the microbial spoilage. Today we will discuss the factors of fish spoilage. This is a general aspect on different kind of spoilage. What are the factors which causes the spoilage? So in this lecture we will discuss about the factors, particularly the rate of spoilage determined by different aspects. As I told at the beginning of the first lecture, the fish is highly susceptible to spoilage because of its very high nutritive value, very high and quantity of protein, and the quality of protein or the quality of fatty acids. Particularly it is rich in unsaturated fatty acid, most of the fish, and also it is rich in omega-3 fatty acids. So because it is very high in nutritive value, so it is more susceptible to spoilage. Secondly, it is automatically highly contaminated. That is another important reason. So in general, the spoilage process starts within 12 hours after catching, if there is no special protection taken or if there is no care taken. The fish spoilage starts within 12 hours after catch, and this spoilage occurs very quickly due to the metabolic activity of microorganisms. So as I told, there will be very high microbial contamination, and microbial growth and the activity of enzyme is the major cause of spoilage. And then there are enzymatic activity within the muscle, that is the endogenous enzymes, that also cause spoilage, and another is the auto-oxidation. So all these things we have discussed earlier also. These are the basic background of the spoilage of fish. Here briefly we will see the factors influencing the kind and rate of spoilage. What kind of spoilage will happen and how fast it will happen. It depends on the kind of fish. So some fish have more fat, so they will have very more quick spoilage, or some fish may have very high level of contamination, so that will have more faster spoilage. Similarly, the condition of the fish when caught. So if the fish is in a very exhaustive condition, or it has got some mishandling or bad handling after the catching, so that will have early spoilage. Then the kind and extent of contamination of the fish with bacteria. So if the fish is very highly contaminated, then that will have more faster spoilage. Another one is the temperature, at what temperature fish is, or the water temperature. If it is in the temperate climate, then the temperature is low, so the fish temperature will be less, the spoilage will be slow. Then another one is the use of antibiotic or other preservative or ice covering. So if these cares are taken, then the spoilage will be slow. So here we will see the list of factors that causes the spoilage or that determines the rate of spoilage or kind of spoilage. So first one is the fat content. As I have already told, if the fish has got more fat, it will have more lipolytic changes or oxidative changes, so the spoilage will be little different. Secondly, the high protein content. If the protein content is high, naturally all the fishes are having high protein content, so that's why it is susceptible to spoilage, mainly due to proteolytic enzymes or proteolytic bacteria. Next is the weak muscle tissues. Some fishes will have the soft muscle tissue, that leads to quicker spoilage. Otherwise, sometime due to the pressure or damage or mishandling. Another one is the bacterial contamination. As I have already told in the previous one, if the bacterial load is more, the spoilage will be faster. Then the temperature, I have already told, if the temperature is high in tropical countries, temperature is high, so the microbial growth will be faster or enzymatic activity will be faster, so the spoilage will be quick. Then moisture content. So normally the fresh fish will have very high moisture content, up to 70-75%, which is very ideal for enzymatic activity or for the growth of all microorganisms. So that's why moisture content plays a very important role for faster spoilage. Then handling or unhygienic conditions. So how we keep the fish, the containers, the storage, the transport all together, if it is unhygienic, then the contamination will be more and the spoilage will be faster. Another aspect is rigor mortis. So if the fish undergo very high struggling or there is total lack of oxygen or very high temperature, then this rigor mortis will be faster. If the rigor mortis is faster, automatically the spoilage process will start early. And the lastly, the use of antibiotics or any other ice or covering that I have already discussed in the previous one. So here once again we'll see some of the few important aspects of spoilage which we have already discussed. One is the unhygienic handling, so that leads to more contamination and spoilage. Then high temperature in the tropical countries, that's a major factor. Then some kind of bacteria like lactic acid bacteria that can cause early fermentation. Then specific spoilage bacteria, like if there is more of lipolytic bacteria in case of fat rich or fatty fish, the spoilage will be faster. Then change in pH is a very important aspect, and unhygienic nets and boats, that is also other important aspect for quick spoilage of fish. So here we will see the factors for microbial spoilage. As we have already seen, the suitable temperature is very important for microbial growth. So temperature plays a role for microbial spoilage. So most of the bacteria has got a optimum temperature for growth, and mostly the mesophilic organisms causes more spoilage. So if the temperature is high, the spoilage will be faster. Similarly, the presence of water, all the bacteria needs water for their growth. So if the fish is raw and having enough optimum moisture content, it will undergo more quick spoilage. And lastly, the suitable chemical substances present in the flesh as a source of food. So because the fish is very highly nutritious, so all the essential requirements for bacterial growth are present, so naturally it favors the early bacterial growth and spoilage. And I have discussed in the previous lecture the changes happens to the protein, carbohydrate and fat during microbial growth or during enzymatic actions. Now we will see the factors influencing the rate of spoilage. So there are about 5 important factors. Firstly, the effect of time and temperature on microbial growth. So as I mentioned, the most crucial factor determining the quality of fish is the time and temperature tolerance, because the microbial growth mostly depends on the optimum temperature. So at lower temperature like near to 0 degree, their activity is reduced, so thereby the shelf life is extended. So that's why in the temperate region the temperature is low, so the microbial growth or enzymatic activity will be slow and the spoilage will be slow. Whereas in the tropical climate the temperature is high, so the microbial growth or enzymatic activity will be faster and the spoilage will be faster. Here we will see the effect of hygiene on fish quality and the rate of spoilage. As we all know, the microbial contamination plays a very important role in the fish quality and spoilage, we have discussed earlier. So the normal microorganism which is present in the fish, it is further added after the catching. So it is due to the unhygienic handling or unhygienic practices. So the equipments and containers and storage facilities and transportation, all this process add the microbial contamination, and that plays a very important role in the spoilage of fish. Now the third factor of spoilage or quick spoilage or rate of spoilage is the rough handling. Rough handling will result in a faster spoilage rate. As we have already discussed, this is due to the physical damage to the fish resulting in easy access of enzymes and spoilage bacteria. Due to some enzymes, due to some injuries or damage, the bacteria can enter from outside and cause faster spoilage. So this is physical handling in the net that can cause damage, or in case of very large catch, fishermen will be dumping them on the containers or a large containers or vessels, and they will be stepping over that, or on the boxes or containers will be kept one over the other, so that can cause the physical damage or bruises or rupture of blood vessels. So all these can cause faster spoilage of fish. Now another factor for rate of spoilage is the initial bacterial load. At the beginning, what is the microbial load? That plays a major role in the spoilage. If the water is very dirty, having very high microbial load, naturally initial microbial load will be more, or due to bad handling at the beginning after catching, as I discussed. Now there is a difference in the nature of the origin. So in case of tropical countries, the microflora on tropical fish often carry slightly higher load of gram-positive bacteria and enteric bacteria. Otherwise, the microflora will be almost similar in the temperate water fish. Similarly, the bacterial population on temperate fish are predominantly psychrotropic. So, fishes from the temperate region will have more psychrotropic bacteria because the temperature is low. The water temperature can be around 10 degree or low, so the bacterial population will be more of psychrotropic origin. So such fish will have more spoilage even after storing at low temperature, whereas in the tropical region the temperature is higher, so the most of the bacterial population will be mesophilic, and they can grow at a room temperature or ambient temperature faster, so that can cause faster spoilage. Now the fifth factor on the rate of spoilage is the methods of capture. The fishing gear and method employed for capture determines the time taken between capture and death. So when the fish is caught and when it dies, to some extent depends on the fishing gear and the fish catching method. The fish caught in gill nets struggle to escape. They are bruised by the net, which increases exposure to microbial entry and subsequent deterioration. So any method where like gill nets are used, that can cause bruising and increases the exposure to microbial entry, and automatically it affects the early deterioration or spoilage. Whereas fish caught by hook and line methods die relatively quickly, and therefore bruises and stresses are likely to be minimal. So in such case the spoilage rate will be slow. Now another important aspect in rate of spoilage is the mode of storage or method of storage, which plays a very important role. In bulk storage, the weight of the pile may crush the fish at the bottom. So where the large amount of fish is stored one over the other. So that causes the loss of weight or the yield, as well as other physical damage, and that can cause the loss of water holding capacity also. It has been reported that when haddock is kept in a short deep pile of about 3 feet, a large amount of fish kept piling over each other up to 3 feet, the bottom fish can lose 15% of their weight or the loss of yield by 15%, which is normally 3 to 8%. Another important aspect is it is entirely due to biochemical changes that cause a loss of water holding capacity and leading to drip loss, and there is a loss of yield, and that's a weight loss. Now briefly we will discuss about limiting the spoilage or how to avoid the spoilage. So that is, in other words, the principles of preservation. If we can limit the deteriorative changes, then it is the preservation. So we will discuss in more details about the principles of preservation and methods of preservation in other subsequent classes. So here briefly we will mention about the how to limit the spoilage. There are three main substances as we have discussed earlier also, which is important for the spoilage process. One is water content, another is enzymes, and the fat content. So first one, the water content, if we reduce, that can reduce the chemical decomposition, and also it can reduce the microbial growth or bacterial growth. So bacterial growth needs sufficient amount of water. So if the water content is reduced, we can delay the spoilage or we can do the preservation. Similarly, water content is less means other chemical decomposition also will reduce. So in continuation about limiting the spoilage, another second factor, reducing the concentration of enzymes. So that is possible either by some treatment so that enzymes can be inactivated, but that all is possible only in processing, not in case of raw fish. Similarly, the fat content, if we reduce, there will be less possibility of oxidation and rancidity. That can cause the spoilage or reduce the taste of the fish, but that is again possible in processing, not in case of raw meat. Another important aspect is handling and storage. So as we have discussed, careful handling means at all stages it is important to prevent damage to the fish. Careless handling can result in damage and cause early spoilage. So this we have discussed a little bit in the first lecture also. So now we are at the end of today's lecture. Today's topic was to discuss about the factors affecting the spoilage, particularly the factors which can cause early spoilage or the factors determining the rate of spoilage. So here we have discussed about the nutritional aspect, the fat content, protein content, the temperature, the rate of handling or contamination sources, or the method of catching fish, and also there is a difference between the tropical region and the temperate region. And finally, briefly we have discussed about reducing some of the aspect like water, fat, or the contamination. So of course those aspects we will discuss more in the preservation. So today mostly we have discussed about the factors causing the rate of spoilage or affecting the rate of spoilage. Briefly we have discussed. Thank you.